welcome to another Spiritual Unity Today. I'm your host, Larry Bloomfield, and today we have another wonderful call-in guest. It is Scott Flynn, and he's here to share his spiritual path with us. Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your path with us. We know that there's so many out there, and well, I'd like to think that we're all kind of heading in the same direction. It's just the paths we take. And it's nice to know those so that we all kind of get an idea of our own individuality and the uniqueness to all of us. And with that being said, I guess I'll go ahead and ask the question, and that is, where in life has spirituality first touched your heart? How's it brought you here today? And where do you see yourself going with that? And hopefully, if we have a little time at the end, you can give us some words of wisdom on top of that.
Thanks again for having me, Larry. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Scott. Well, we do appreciate you being on.
So my spiritual journey started about 9 years ago. I had an acquaintance at the time hand me a book and say, I think you might be interested in this. And it was a book on non-duality. And that's the primary topic of what we're going to be talking about today. But what made this book so interesting is that as I read it, I actually didn't know what it was saying. Yet there was something in it that resonated within me that said, whatever this is, it's important.
Nice.
And so there was like this knowing within me that longed to know itself. And so it was this essence within that just led me to another non-duality book and to some videos. And then I was just off to the races to try to understand what this message of non-duality is. So let me define non-duality.
Okay.
Non-duality is the English word for the Indian philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. Okay, and the word Advaita literally means not two. So it's non-dual. Okay, and then Vedanta, we could say, is a philosophy. But to the Indians, this philosophy is more of like a way of being or a way of life. It just is this. And according to Advaita, there's one substance of all of totality. This one substance is yourself. Okay, so it's saying that the non-dual substance of all of creation is the one of yourself. So that's self with a capital S. And that self is the home of peace, happiness, love, contentment, wholeness, completeness, fulfillment, satisfaction, beauty, everything we're searching so hard for out in the world. So Advaita says, if you turn your attention away from the world, back onto yourself, you can experience these beautiful qualities of yourself permanently.
Very nice.
So that's the overarching message of Advaita Vedanta, that there's one reality, there's one substance here. That one substance is yourself. And because self is permanent, when you know yourself directly, then you know happiness permanently.
Very nice. Awesome. Now, this obviously started you on your path and your journey. And as you were mentioning, you went through several books on this to be able to get even more in tuned on it. At that point, where did you see yourself going with that?
Well, that was why there's a path, because you don't know where it's going, right? Because the mind wants to know where it's going, so when it gets there, it will understand it. But the paradox of this question is that your heart doesn't contain your mind. So your heart is yourself. So the mind can never know your heart. And that's why it makes this message so counterintuitive to most of us, especially us in the Western Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
Because we think we can know everything and that we have to know everything for there to be value in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Quite often
but
we do get caught up in our minds, and then that's where you get the monkey mind starting to grow.
Absolutely. But where this gets perplexing is that yourself, the one substance, your heart, is infinite. Okay? It's an infinite experience. Because the finite mind cannot get its arms big enough to get around the infinite of your heart, then the mind says it doesn't have any value, so ignore it. Right? A mind says, I only find value in things I can get my arms around, I can know, and I can own, and there I can put value on it. But again, because your heart is bigger than your mind will say it doesn't have value. And that is just not true. The truth is, this place that the mind calls non-existent or has no value is everything. It's everything we are searching for in the world. And so, again, when you turn your attention away from the world onto your heart, you can experience these qualities permanently.
Well, very nice. Now, I know that many people try to accomplish reaching within and trying to find that inner light. And sometimes it's done with meditation and other things like that. Is that something you found to be an assistance to you?
So the way to attain this is meditative-like. If you walked into a room and somebody was doing meditation and somebody was doing what is known as self-inquiry in this message, they would both look like they were doing the same thing, just nothing. They're meditating. But meditation is when you're focusing on your mind. You're trying to calm your mind. You're trying to soothe your mind, manipulate your mind into being a better mind, right? And it's not just your mind. It can be your breath. It can be chanting, anything that focuses on an object to try to have you experience a better life is meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Self-inquiry is turning your attention away from those objects, the object of your mind, of your breath, and of the chanting, back onto the source of the attention. It's your source of the attention is awareness. Awareness is what is aware of your mind. It's aware of your chanting. It's aware of your breath. So this is where it gets profound, right? Because we're saying that the objective world doesn't have the solution. It's the non-objective experience of your awareness, of your consciousness, is that you're trying to attend to. And because your awareness or yourself or consciousness is permanence itself, that's where this word permanence comes into play. You know, where the mind is constantly changing. Everything about your mind is constantly changing. Yet everything about your being or your awareness is permanent. And this is where the profound difference starts to come into play.
Well, I imagine many people have difficulty in meditation, in that calming or focusing on one breath or whatnot. Maybe you can give us an idea of ways to assist us in accomplishing this particular way of managing it.
Yeah, this is a great question, because this is where the counterintuitiveness of this message comes into play. So I'm going to give you a visualization utilizing my open palm. And so I'll do my best, because I know that we're audio only on this. But so imagine you're just an open, free-floating palm when you're born. There's no energy in here. There's no effort in here. It's pure. And somewhere around the age of 5, our parents, our brothers and sisters or grandparents start to say, "You're cute. You're a boy. You have dimples." And we start to turn our attention away from ourselves onto what we think is a boy, what we think is cute, and what we think is our dimples. And this free-floating, pure palm starts to seize up. It starts to go into a fist. And this is representing us building an ego over time. We start to put energy into this thing we call ego, this identity that we start to build. And an ego is a contraction of energy. Okay, so we're putting energy into this free-floating palm, and it turns into a hard-shelled fist after a while. Okay, so in this fist, the energy is already contained in the fist. What this message is saying is you're going to release the energy in this fist, and you're going to start to open that fist back up into a free-floating palm. Okay, so from the fist to the palm, if you analyze it, you're not putting energy into that. You're relinquishing energy that's already stored. Okay, so this is where you hear the terms letting go.
Yeah.
Or, relinquishing or surrendering. Well, this is a way to visualize that. So the counterintuitive piece is, by relinquishing energy, by relinquishing effort, we gain something. What do we gain? We gain this free-floating palm again that has the experience of boundless freedom and peace and happiness. And this is what we're all after. So that's what makes this message so counterintuitive. We're so used to thinking we have to put energy in to gain something. This is saying in the absence of energy or absence of effort is when we gain something.
Very nice. Now, I believe that you've actually written a book. Maybe you can give us some insight a little bit to that itself.
Yes, thank you. The book is entitled Love Outpouring, and it talks a little bit about my story on how I got here, but just a little bit, just enough to give you a sense of where I came into this. The book is written for 2 main reasons. One is to show my love and gratitude for the Indian culture, where this information, where this knowledge, this wisdom came from, that set me free.
Very nice.
So it's my how I'm showing and how I'm sharing it. The other piece is for the reader to experience this message as well. And so really it's a book packed with examples and metaphors and practices and exercises and questions to have the reader try to experience what this message is pointing to. And why it's so tricky to put this in words because, again, the infinite can't be put into words, right? It can only be pointed to.
Yeah.
And so the book, it says this right up front, the book is not the answer. What this book is feverishly trying to show you is to turn your attention back onto the one who's reading this book. That's the answer, that you yourself are this answer. And so the book is just feverishly trying to get you to turn your attention back onto yourself.
Very nice. Well, it does take metaphors or examples and things to be able to give us an explanation for things that are very difficult to describe. And so it's nice to see that your book is given that possibility to give the potential for someone to look within themselves and try to see that picture, which is, again, a very difficult task for just about anybody. But again, it does enable us to find that peace and enlightenment that we're all looking for. We're all on that journey of seeking. It's just a matter of how it is for you at that time that you're looking.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
You know, and to your point earlier, like, how do you get there? I have a full chapter of an explanation of possibilities on how to get there. There's no such thing as a 10-step process to happiness.
Very nice. It's all different for everybody.
That's right. So, and then I talk about science, you know, how the scientific world, the Western academia points to this as well. And I also have a section on Western religion, primarily Christianity, on how these two are really meshed together, and that how all great religions in the world point back to this one reality of yourself.
Well, I'd like to think that it's kind of like the thread that runs through all of the different faiths to be able to give us an understanding of the connection that we all have to each other in this particular nice way of balance, in trying to get you back to a point where, well, I guess we can see a lot greater in the world if we can see within ourselves first. And you've definitely given us something to think about here. Now that you've written a book and all, if somebody was interested in furthering their knowledge on that book, is there a website or a particular place that somebody could contact you possibly?
Absolutely. The book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and anywhere you typically buy a book. And then my website is www.loveoutpouring.com.
Very nice.
And they can reach me there and read blogs there, and, you know, start their journey in Advaita there if they'd like.
Very nice. Now that you have done this and you have moved forward and you've given us some really good stuff to chew on here, what do you see coming out in the future, possibly? Digging into the future.
A deeper insight into the mechanics of reality, like how does this manifestation work? Because there is a process to it. The message of Advaita states that if you can't experience what is being pointed to directly and inherently, then discard it. So everything here has to be experiential. You know, and like what Einstein said, it's like, experience is the primary knowledge, right? So there's like this mechanism of coming out of this one substance into the apparent many, right? Because we gaze out into the world and it's like, it sure does look like there's a lot of things here, and that is true. There appears to be a lot of things here, but what these things are, when you look under the hood, is only the one substance of yourself, of awareness. And you can experience that directly, these mechanisms that drive the truth of this message.
Very nice. And what's ultimately the goal here is finding that peace and connection, which is really what happens in all faiths, in hopes that you can find that road to enlightenment. And well, you're definitely giving us something to think about and all. Before you go, would you possibly have some extra words of wisdom you'd like to leave us with?
I like to say, you perceive the world as you experience yourself. So if you experience yourself as a limited body and mind contained in here within your skin, then any other thing you peer out on will be an object separate from you. And that drives the sense of separation, which is the sense of lack. I'm over here and everything else is out there, so I'm fragmented. But if you experience yourself as the one whole of yourself, well, there's only one. So when you peer out into the world is nothing other than yourself as well. There's no sense of separation there. There's only unity. And that unity is experienced as love, as peace, as happiness and joy and contentment and fulfillment.
Very nice.
That's why I'm just pushing people to know themselves.
Very nice. Well, again, we are speaking with Scott Flynn, and he has been kind enough to come on and share his spiritual path with us and give us some enlightenment on how maybe we can find our spiritual path or get started. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, it's been beautiful, and we thank you so much because once again, it shows us that, well, we're all stars in the same heaven, and we thank you very much for that.
Take care.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and thank all my listeners for listening to Spiritual Unity Today.